Good evening, guys. It is Thursday. It is June the 5th. Welcome to Generational Change, or Pontificating with Pete for the time being. It is great to see you all. Appreciate you all checking in this evening. Looks like we're already off to a good start with our numbers. Make sure if you are here that you smash that like button, because we want to get this out to as many people as possible. This is show number 2 of me running it solo without Jen, who is overseas in Great Britain. And that is a trip that she's going to be on with her sons for the next week and a half, 2 weeks, somewhere around there. So hope you're all doing great this evening. Obviously, we've got a lot to talk about. Our friend of the show, Amy C3, who is a big Twitch streamer over in LA. She is going to be joining us in less than an hour, but obviously we're going to have a lot to talk about in the early stages. There are so many different stories that keep propping up all over the place. Obviously, we're going to talk about Greta Thunberg and Lindsey Graham at length. That's going to be a big one. It goes without saying that she is certainly putting herself in a significant amount of danger. Not just because she's been somebody who's been very vocal in regards to a lot of the problems that we've been seeing lately, environmentally, war, famine, all those things. Greta has obviously been one hell of a fighter, and we cannot give her enough credit for what she is doing right now. She is putting her life on the line, literally. There is no telling what Israel is going to do when they get close, the Freedom Flotilla I am referring to, when it gets close to Gaza. Will they fire warning shots? Well, our understanding is that there are drones that are already circling above the boat. Not a surprise. But I think that there is a reasonable chance that something bad is going to happen. But I also would like to think that Israel may have at least some semblance of mental clarity regarding the fact that if Greta Thunberg is attacked, or God forbid is murdered, that it would create an international incident, the likes of which the state could never recover from. So I don't know what their thinking is, but with that said, we cannot say enough about her courage. I think that's the only word that I think is most appropriate here. What is her courage? Her courage is incredible. And I've thought about, where we could start this evening, what would make the most sense in terms of a story that I think a lot of you guys would probably be curious about. There was one that was very interesting to me personally, that I thought was very telling. And that was, as you guys know, I am very proud of my Irish heritage. And certainly we have done, Claire, great to see you. That is great to hear. Yeah, I think that the world is kind of unifying at this point. I think that that's what is happening. I know that the message that the Zionists have put out for a very long time is this idea that this all started October 7th, 2023. And, you know, for the people that don't really follow politics, that's probably worked on a lot of them. They were probably accustomed to this idea of, well, it's a complicated issue. And, you know, there's this fighting that goes on back and forth. And, you know, who the hell knows what actually led to this occurring. We don't really have the time and don't really want to put in the effort. That's why a lot of people stay out of this stuff. Rightfully so. But this, of course, has seeped into our everyday consciousness, and we have to step up. So one of the things that many of you may not know is that Conan O'Brien, yes, the Conan O'Brien, actually visited the West Bank. And it wasn't after October 7, 2023. No, this was 7 years ago. So you guys are going to enjoy this blast from the past clip. But pay close attention. I think it's very powerful.
There's been a lot of violence here, a lot of clashes between the Israeli forces and Palestinians, rock throwing, tear gas, killings. And of course, right here, the ultimate symbol of divisiveness, Donald Trump kissing the guard tower.
It's a really beautiful guard tower, really incredible. I love it. Really great job.
Apparently, he thinks it's his fourth wife.
While we were filming at the wall, I was confronted by a group of pro-Palestinian activists.
What do you think of this wall? Is this a normal wall?
Well, no, I don't think any wall like this is normal. Do you?
I'm Palestinian.
Yeah.
Not at all.
No.
Not at all.
No. It's sad.
It's very
walls
sad.
like
It's an
this
open-air
wall.
prison at the end of the day. That's not, you don't create peace by segregating people. And they can't keep saying, oh, well, they throw rocks. You've got M16s. You've got tanks. You can't compare that.
There's also another side of it where there are people who would say we don't want the Jewish state to exist at all. We don't want to accept it at all.
If you speak to Palestinians, you can go into refugee camps, which they would never take you, right? But you would be welcomed, and people will welcome you into their home and give you the clothes.
No,
off their back.
we're on our way to. We wanted to go to a refugee
Which one?
camp.
But with the IDF.
No, we're not going with the IDF.
You got to love the way Conan just kind of put his foot down. He's like, I ain't going with the IDF. What are you, crazy? I don't want anything to do with those guys. So even in the face of all of that has been going on, keep in mind that this was done. This clip is from several years ago. So Conan has been way ahead of the curve, and he's also shining a great light on a substantial issue. But remember, to tens of millions of people, they were simply not aware. A lot of people have just been completely affected by the propaganda. The propaganda is what has gotten to so many for so very long. This idea that everything just happened to begin on October 7th, 2023. But that's not true. He's at the West Bank right now. And as we've pointed out, perhaps the worst aspect of the Trump presidency rests in the fact that he was reelected with $100 million backing from Miriam Adelson, whose probably sole mission in life right now is to annex the West Bank.
Ida camp you're going to.
Let me ask you a question. What do you see as a solution?
As a solution, well, one, America has to stop giving Israel $10 million a day just for weapons.
Boy, that seems pretty simple, don't you think? And this is over 7 years ago. 10 million with an M, $10 million a day, $70 million a week, a quarter of $1 billion a month. And this is peacetime. So as you can see, we are funding a genocide. We've been funding the apartheid state forever. So while Israel is guilty of doing the deed, you know, we're the drug dealer, giving the drug addict the drugs to do the deed. It's one and the same in so many ways.
Once the weapons stop, Israel has no choice but to talk about peace.
And
Right.
if American people knew where their money was going, and the fact that when our wonderful orange president got elected, and people are very sad that
Let's not go after him for having orange hair. Now you're getting personal with me.
It's his
Now you have
orange face.
now you have a problem with me.
It's his orange face.
It's his face.
No, but
That got very personal very fast. Well, here's what I can tell you. I can tell you that there's no way my 40-minute program is going to satisfy what it is you want me to do. Now, let me just finish. What I do promise to do is make sure that people who watch this program will have an idea that this other reality exists. Thank you for talking to me. Thank you. Yeah, and if you're cool with us putting this online, as it unfolded, I'd be happy to do that.
I hope you guys all understand the significance of what Conan did here and how this flies in the face of everything as it relates to corporate media infrastructure. That's what happened here. And that's why it is so significant that we remember that there were people who were speaking out against the apartheid state, much less the genocide state, before it was politically convenient to do so. Now, while Conan did in fact go and visit Tel Aviv, I'm not going to play that clip because there is no point. I think it is very important that we see that Conan is not mincing words here. Now, unfortunately, he kind of stands all by himself. But this clip continues.
Okay.
The unedited version of this encounter can be found online, but to be fair, I must emphasize we did not have a similar conversation with the people who dispute these views.
I'm standing here in Aida. It is one of the oldest Palestinian refugee camps. And tell us, what does this represent, the opening here?
This is the gate of 1948. It symbolized the right of return for the refugees. Our grandfathers, they were forced to leave their villages, their houses. So they hold the keys. After 60 years, we are waiting for the international community to implement the UN resolution 194 that gave us the right to return for our homeland.
UN Resolution 194 came in the aftermath of Israel's first war with their Arab neighbors. Whether the refugees fled their homes or were forced from their homes is still a hotly disputed question to this day.
I don't think it's a disputed question anymore. I think we can agree on that.
Children that live here, are they growing up in a situation where they have no expectation that there'll be peace?
We as Palestinians, we are teaching the people that we will have peace on this land. We can live together here.
Would it be possible for me to go in and talk to some people? Is that possible?
Yes, we can go.
Hello, what is your name?
My name is Shada.
Do you live here in Aida?
So I was born in Gaza camp, but then I married and came to live in Aida camp.
Okay.
So from camp to camp.
Do you feel like people in America understand what's happening here?
So do you know we have a problem with the American government, but we don't have any problem with the people. And I tried before to travel to America, but they refused my visa.
You couldn't get a visa to come in.
Because at that time I went to continue my master's degree there.
What was your master's in?
Environmental studies.
Environmental studies. Wow, a very impressive person.
Thank you.
Yeah, best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Did these guys all grow up here in Aida?
Amazing. Guys, we have 193 of you watching right now, and only 79 of you have hit that like button. So if you could, please hit that like button. Please make sure that you're subscribed. Please make sure that you click the bell. Please make sure that you share the stream. As many people that we can get this out to as possible is obviously much appreciated. Teamwork makes the dream work. As you know, we shouted out our friend Savvy Sabs for passing 200,000 subscribers. We shout out our friends over at Due Dissonance for passing 100,000 subscribers earlier today. We are over 26,000 subscribers, but we're making our way up the ladder. And with supporters like you, the fact that we already have 200 of you in the stream, that really means a lot. It's going to allow us to continue to grow. And every step along the way makes a huge difference. We cannot say that enough. Because again, not only do we have a big base of support that is growing, we have a very loyal base of support. We recognize You guys showing up on a regular basis. And that is what really stands out. We say that we're small but mighty, and we mean that. We're mighty because the people who do watch our channel really appreciate the work that we are doing. And that really does mean a lot. And if you are so inclined, please go over to patreon.com/generational change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel that is continuing to grow. So as I mentioned, I feel a certain level of pride and appreciation for Conan O'Brien because of what he represents. The fact is, he is substantially high on the totem pole in terms of corporate media, recognizable person. And yet, I can't think of anybody that ever did any type of coverage of the Palestinian people prior to October 7th. And even now, it's still kind of iffy, overwhelmingly. But the fact that he was willing to do that says so much about his courage and the fact that he has the confidence in his supporters that they wouldn't turn on him for doing this, that he knew that this is a message that needed to get out there. So credit to him for doing what needed to be done. And today, we continue to push that envelope. We, as people, need to continue to put this message out there. So hopefully, a lot of people will see this clip of Conan and recognize that there are some good people out there. But as we've stated before, state again, there are far too many people that have been silent, that will stay silent, and that is not changing. We are witnessing the dismantlement of the Zionist apartheid genocidal state. And even now, there are countless amounts of people with substantial platforms that have been stone silent about what's going on. Even though I'm sure behind closed doors, they have no problem saying the truth, saying, yeah, this is really bad, this is not a good thing, and we really should speak up about it. But what if it hurts our career? What if that happens? What the hell is the point of having a career if the only thing that matters to you is self-serving interests at the expense of untold amounts of innocent blood that must be spilled? I don't know if Jen is here, but thank you, Colin or Brett or Rachel, who put this up. You know, Jen went through this. Jen was a Zionist, and she found her way out of that cult. Credit to her for doing so. There's a lot of people who I would imagine that are in it still that want to get out of it. And whether it's because they have the lack of courage, fear, a lot of people are afraid. Not just for their career, there are also people who are afraid of the ramifications of what may or may not happen amongst their friends. If they chose one day to stand up and say, what's happening to the Palestinians is simply wrong. Even somebody like Miss Rachel, who we've highlighted, as you guys know, multiple times, she has incredible courage. And she has spoken up repeatedly about what's going on with these children. And she said recently, I don't care if this costs me my career. This is something that must be spoken of. We cannot stay silent. It is inexcusable. We can't save them all. But what we are going to do is change the narrative so that we can save them. I think that's the greatest lesson here. So bringing up even something that's from the past, I think is still relevant. And I think the fact that Conan was willing to go there, and you could say, well, he's a celebrity. He probably was under armored guard. He was never really in harm's way. Is that really true, though? I mean, if you show up in that territory, who's to say that there isn't somebody that would be willing to take that kind of a chance? I don't know. I think it's pretty risky. So kudos, like I said, to Conan for doing just that. That obviously means a lot. You guys are already getting off to a big start, so I'm going to have to give a shout out. Esjera, thank you so much for the $2. Pray, Madeline, Gaza, Flotilla, Greta, and Rima Hassan. Yes, I believe there's a clip of Rima that we may play as well this evening. Brett, thank you, of course, for being our mod for the 2 Canadian A. Hit the like and F Zionocides. We definitely agree on that. And of course, Chip, great to see you, brother. Thank you for the $5 super sticker. And of course, I see that you guys have picked it up considerably on the like button. So that's awesome. We thank you very much for doing that. And I would say, one of the things that we've been talking about, and I've been talking about with Colin, is that we definitely need to add a call-in feature, especially on shows like this where I'm flying solo and I don't want to just go one after the other pertaining to stories, because that's not how we do our show. I'm always curious to hear what you guys have to say. But as I've mentioned, this is a very substantially important topic to talk about. It is a driving force on our channel because, as has been the message and the mission of generational change since day one, which is, if at all possible, transform politics into service. Well, the service that we are transforming right now is amongst the masses to fight collectively to take down the Zionist terror state that is Israel. Now, it may not be happening as quickly as we would like, but it is happening. I can assure you that the night is always darkest before the dawn. Part of the reason the violence has exacerbated to such a degree is because right now, Israel is feeling the heat. They are feeling immense pressure because what may have been intended as a set goal that they had in mind going into this genocide was that they would get through it and people would eventually forget and greater Israel would become a reality. That is not the case here. Everything is falling apart. And it is on us to keep the pressure on their throats, step on their necks, and make sure that they do not get away with this. They've been getting away with it, but we have to make it stop and we have to end it once and for all. I know everyone says a ceasefire, and that's great. Sable, here's what I'm going to say about Abby Martin. Abby is not coming on the podcast tonight. Amy C3 is coming on. However, I will say this now, and I will share this with all of you guys. Abby Martin, who is somebody that we have been trying to get on the podcast for years, she's one of our top gets if we were to get her. Well, the good news is Abby is going to be on our podcast at the end of the summer. I don't have a date yet, but I will definitely keep you guys posted. But Abby will be joining us when she finishes her documentary, her book/documentary. But she's going to come on to promote it, and we are very excited to have that conversation when it happens. Uncle Sam, if the IDF wasn't watching me at this point, I'd be disappointed in them. I would say, what more do I have to do to get your attention? So here I am. I'm a moving target. Left, right, all that. We'll see. But so who cares? At some point, you just have to say, what the fuck? People used to be afraid of them having them come after you, but as I've tried to show people time and again, and as life has shown us, you either live on you can make two choices. You can either die on your feet or you can live on your knees. Which one is it going to be? That's a big question. One of the things that I think is a good transition, I am watching my back. You don't have to worry about that. Progressive Lefty, always good to see you. And we appreciate you guys all being here. And again, for those of you who have hit that like button, thank you so much. This is going to get out to a lot more people over the course of this evening. Thank you so very, very much. I want to transition into a topic that I think is very important. You know, the thing that I've been mentioning at the start here is the complicity that so many people in positions of power have. And it doesn't just pertain to Israel. It pertains to everything within this broken economic and political system. And there are people that have feigned ignorance about, let's just say, the mental health and functioning capacities of our former president, Biden. That goes without saying. Of the massive cover-up that went on time and again on countless issues within that administration. So when everyone is coming around now and looking at Trump and what's going on in his administration, make no mistake, one of the great sins of American culture is that we have very short-term memory. We tend to not pay attention to what happened yesterday, much less yesteryear, that led us to this point. And I bring this up because I'm sure a lot of you have noticed that Corinne Jean-Pierre has written her book now. Guys, our channel is doing good because these people are all in the chat now. That's great. We're glad you're here. Keep talking. Keep spewing your crap because you know what happens? 250 live stream viewers and counting. So by all means, keep coming. We don't care, but we appreciate your support. We really do. I know people get upset and they think, oh, it's bad if the Zionists are in here. No, it isn't. It's great. It means we're making an impact. So let them talk. That's the point. So I say the more the merrier. And that should be everybody's attitude too. Now, do you want to troll them? I'm not going to stop you. So have fun. So Corinne Jean-Pierre, who went in front of millions of people every day, lying about everything, about Israel, and of course about the health of the President of the United States, couldn't stop. Well, now she has a book. And who better to talk about the hypocrisy of her writing a book than our good friend Blakeley?
Attempted rehabilitation of the Biden ghouls continues today. Yesterday it was Count Smirkula. Today it is Corinne Jean-Pierre, who was the press secretary under.
I have to say, credit to Blakeley for coming up with such an amazing nickname for Mr. Miller, Count Smirkula. That is a great one. So kudos to you, Blakeley. That is a really solid nickname. Let's continue.
Joe Biden. So in her attempt of trying to rehabilitate her image and act like she wasn't the full-ass press secretary and spokesperson for the genocide, she's going to be coming out with a new book, a book about how she's leaving the Democratic Party. Oh, isn't that convenient? Now you're becoming an independent after you straight up not only lied through your teeth to cover for a genocide the entire time that you were press secretary, but also lied through your teeth to the American people about Joe Biden's ability to keep running and to be president.
Keep in mind that one of the worst jobs that you could possibly have in politics is the press secretary position. If your intention is to have a career along the Beltway, whether for one of the nonprofits, think tanks, consultant firms, things like that, writing a book and getting paid a nice chunk of change in order to do it, then that's the job for you. But in terms of the respect factor, in terms of what is going to come from actually having such a job, I mean, you're the butt end of every joke. Now, the only thing I could possibly say positively about Corinne Jean-Pierre is that she's not as stomach turning as Jen Psaki was. But the same is true for all of the people that ran through the Trump administration. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, you know, they're Sean, what's his name again? I know there was the Mooch. You know, all these guys are just in it for a career. That's all that it comes down to. And thank you, Jimmy. Max Blumenthal is another gentleman we are hopefully going to have as a guest on our podcast in the near future. Jen's working on that one. But that's what they are. They are propagandists. But Corinne wants a career along the Beltway. That's what happens. So somebody offered her to write a book. And never forget that I'm not going to say that Corinne wasn't qualified to take the position. I mean, what are the real qualifications to be the press secretary? I don't want to downplay it. I don't want to overstate it. But when Corinne was hired, all they talked about was that she was a woman, she was black, and she was gay. And that was the most important thing to liberal society. Like, that's what mattered. Not, she's an exceptionally witty person, she does an amazing job. No, that's not what matters. What matters is how many boxes we can check in our imaginary mind. And you wonder why so many of these organizations and corporate organizations have completely rejected any type of funding or sponsorship for Pride Month. It shouldn't surprise anybody, because this is the type of stuff that gets thrown front and center. It completely flies in the face of anything as it relates to improving the standards of living of people that are considered lesser than in this culture. That's what ends up happening. People like Corinne Jean-Pierre take advantage of those opportunities. Not that they actually give a rat's ass if it's a question of them getting hired because of who they identify as. It's, I'm going to use this as a weapon to advance my career. So I will lie through my teeth every day in order to fulfill an agenda. And now she feels that she's going to fulfill that agenda by writing a book and feigning ignorance about what was really going on. I mean, it's like they really haven't learned their lesson. But in this case, I'm leaving the Democratic Party. Hey, guess what, sister? Everyone's leaving the Democratic Party.
It was clear to everybody else that his brain was oatmeal. In her book, Independent, LOL, an inside look into the broken White House outside the party lines. Isn't it great now all of a sudden all these Johnny-come-latelys want to tell us about how dysfunctional the White House is, now that they're not there anymore and they can profit off of it? She shares why Americans must step beyond party lines to embrace life as an independent. Why would I take your advice? Your job was to professionally lie to people, to lie to the American people about the genocide in Gaza, to lie to the people about Joe Biden's health. And now you want to lecture us about how we need to embrace life as independence and buy your shitty book. No.
Well, I will say this. We absolutely should not buy her book. But one of the things that also happens, guys, whether you're aware of this or not, when somebody who's considered part of the club writes and releases a book, there are organizations that will buy up hundreds, if not thousands, of copies of the book in order to boost their numbers on, let's say, the New York Times bestseller list. That's a thing.
No, thank you. She's a cretin, just like Count Smirkula is a cretin, just like everybody in that administration that didn't resign in protest is a fucking cretin. Yeah. All of you are coming out now and being like, wow, we really didn't know how dysfunctional this was. Yes, you did. Yes, you did, but you didn't want to lose your grip on power, you didn't want to lose your access, and you didn't want to lose your money. There were a few good people that actually did resign during the administration in objection to the genocide. So you and Count Smirkula can take a long walk off a short Pierre.
What I also want to say, and to back up what Blakeley is saying, and I think this is important, one of the things I think a lot of people tend to forget when it comes to the Beltway and how things actually operate in Washington, D.C., make no mistake, if you get out of line, you are not only excommunicated, you are excommunicated forever. Forever. There is no, you've learned your lesson, and now we'll let you back in because you've shown that you are a good, loyal foot soldier. If you fuck up, they will kick you out for good. Now, what is equally more impressive is how long people actually can last if they just suck off the corporate infrastructure as hard as humanly possible, or in this case, the DNC, which Corinne had no problem doing. Perhaps because they don't really have much use for her anymore. And she doesn't see a path where going down that road within the Democratic Party infrastructure is going to serve her career-wise. That's the reason she's jumping to independent. And I'm not saying that she's going to go over to the GOP. I think a lot of people are just kind of seeing the way that the tailwinds are moving at this point, and they're moving away from the red and the blue, and that something new is starting to grow, and she's trying to get ahead of the curve. But I think the only reason that she's doing that is because she tried to get onto that next rung of the ladder, and there isn't one for her. And now that the needle has been pushed away substantially from the whole LGBTQ movement, she's kind of out on an island. And she's just looking around wondering, oh, where the hell's my next opportunity going to come from? Well, as we've seen time and again, the Democrats in particular, Republicans bad too, but Democrats in particular will use you for as long as they can make use of you. And when they feel that they can't anymore, you are cast aside as if you never existed in the first place.
I'm so fucking tired of all these ghouls in politics fucking over the country, profiting off of it, and then after contributing to hurting the country, they come back and want promotions and book deals. I never want to see anybody from the Biden administration again. It's amazing that you guys aren't embarrassed to show your faces in public.
Well, one last thing I will say about this, it's not even so much about her showing her face in public, but I do think that Blakeley has a point here. I know the election was 7 months ago, but Trump has been in the White House for just over 4 months. I agree there is something to be said for coming back into the fray a little too quickly. And perhaps that's something that ended up happening here in this circumstance, that she ended up coming back into the fray in too quick of a fashion for people to be like, what the hell are you doing here? Didn't we just kick you out like a few months ago? Why are you still around? Shouldn't you take a vacation or go find a job in the private sector for a couple of years and then maybe pop up your head again when an opportunity is there? But like Blakeley said, people are so desperate to remain relevant. They're so desperate for power that they will do anything to keep it. And why is it worse on the Democratic side than the Republican side? Because very often on the Republican side, they just go work in the private sector and make a lot of money. Now, there are those on the Democratic side who do it, but a lot of them are just not capable. A lot of them are basically political lifers. That's why there's such a substantially bigger problem in the Democratic Party than the Republican Party when it comes to political lifers, people that just sit there forever and never leave. They leave in a box. That's how they leave. And I hate to say it, but nothing is going to change. And now that the Democratic Party is bleeding support in the worst possible way, if you thought people like Wasserman Schultz and Pelosi and Schumer were hanging on to their seats before, oh boy, you better believe that's their last will and testament, because the second they're out, they will be thrust into the dustbin of history as if they had never existed. That's what's going to happen. And we cannot get them there fast enough. So I say, let's do our part and ensure that people like Jean-Pierre have no relevance in politics whatsoever, which she shouldn't. She made her bed. Now she can sleep in it. And if she ends up getting hired as a lobbyist or a consultant for however long that remains relevant on Capitol Hill, well, go ahead and do that. But as far as I can tell, Jean-Pierre, if I had to guess, she wants a job on MSNBC or CNN. That's what she wants. Maybe she starts her own podcast. Who the hell knows? But from where I stand, that would seem like the most sensible move that she's going to end up making. Will she succeed? I don't know. Excuse me. I can't say one way or the other whether her personality jives with the average person and whether they actually look at her and think, yeah, I definitely want to hear what she has to say. But it's not our decision, because there's a lot of people who end up on TV that we look at and think, how the hell did they end up there? Like, how the hell did Chris Christie end up on corporate news for as long as he did? Considering what a shitty governor he turned out to be and all the things that he ended up doing, going from, being a lapdog for Trump, and then all of a sudden he hates Trump, and now all of a sudden they put him on TV, forgetting all the things that he did. That's a huge part of it that I don't think people should forget. And that really makes a difference. We have another round of super chats. Army with Harmony. Thank you very much to 2025 Year of the Snake. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member. We really appreciate you being here. And every member that joins, we are very grateful for that. I think what we're going to do is we're going to come up with some type of a formula where if you are, especially if you're a paying member of the show, we want to be able to offer a call-in segment of the show, perhaps after we finish the live. We're gonna be discussing this. Like I said, we're not starting from scratch. Keep that in mind, but we are rebranding and we are going to be doing some new things under revolutionary change. Chris Peters, thank you so much for the £5. After I said the other night to watch Owen Jones, he won the People's Choice Award in the UK for journalism on the genocide in Gaza. We would absolutely love to connect with Owen if he's available. And if there's any way that you can help facilitate that, Chris, that would be super duper. Harmony, thank you so much for the $5. Every dollar counts. It really means a lot. And Mark J, thank you for the $2. Brilliant commentary, Pete. Thank you. Well, I would say that the group here provides a great deal of sustenance and energy. If we've got 300 people watching live, I better bring my A game. You guys better be entertained. Are you not entertained? I hope you're entertained. That's why we're here. I am here to make sure that you guys are enjoying yourselves. I don't have to worry about what's going on in the chat because we've got some fantastic mods. The really greatest, incredible mods. Give it up for Brett Boyle. Give it up for Rachel. Give it up for Colin. We got a really amazing team. Great people. Tremendous people. And if you haven't smashed that like button, please make sure that you do. We want to get this out to as many people as possible. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I hope I have made a good enough impression on those of you that are new here to subscribe. For those that have stayed, we have certainly made an excellent impression, enough that we are actually growing a sustainable amount now, which we hope will last. Jen will be featured at least a couple of times a week, either by some of the clips that we've held back, because obviously we want to keep Jen fresh in everybody's minds. And Jen is going to be sending us more content for social media that we're going to be able to put up on her trip over to the UK. We already did a clip from Stonehenge. We will have another clip that we will be able to put up soon enough as well. And so just as long as you guys are here, as long as you follow our channel on a daily basis, you know that there's always going to be additional information that you are going to be provided with. So we can update you guys on what's coming up, especially starting next week. We are going to touch upon with Amy the debate last night between Zoran Mamdani and Andrew Cuomo. Yes, it was a debate amongst all of the New York mayoral candidates, but really it does come down to those two candidates and what is ultimately going to happen in that election. But in terms of the endorsement, AOC did endorse Zoran Mamdani last night after the debate, but didn't put anything out on social media. And she still wants you to know how much she believes that Israel has the right to defend itself. And so because of that, well, I don't know how much of an impact that endorsement's really going to have, but we are going to talk about that at great length with one of the people who was with AOC in the early stages of her career, and that, of course, is Zaina Dave. She will be our guest host on Monday, the 9th. My good friend Osiris from Stuck in the Middle podcast will be our co-host on Thursday, the 12th. And then our awesome friend, Steve Grumbine of Real Progressives, he will be our co-host on Monday, June the 16th. We still have the 19th. That'll be the last one before Jen returns. We'll be working on that one. Hopefully we'll have a really incredible, awesome show before Jen does come back. But I will say, first and foremost, that the fact that you guys are here, Bubble Kitty, you hit it right on the head. Seemed is the key word. If you spend more time focusing on putting out a message about how much you appreciate Israel and not so much about, hey, we really need to make sure that Andrew Cuomo does not become the mayor of New York City, well, then you kind of understand where the whole concept of the importance of what your priorities are, they come to the forefront and you can't hide. She's been trying to hide. We're not going to let her. Zaina, thank you for checking in. And as I mentioned, she will be my co-host on Monday. So appreciate you being here. I'm not going to argue with you, Iranian. I do think that that is something that we have to take into consideration. Now, Alex, unfortunately, Jessica Ramos does not have enough momentum to really make an impact. But what I will say is that I can only hope that everybody who does plan on voting for Jessica Ramos for mayor ranks Zoran Mamdani second and does not rank Andrew Cuomo at all. That would be the smartest way to go about what I hope has become a real coalition amongst the populist progressive voters in the city of New York. Do I think that he can lose Andrew Cuomo? Possibly. But he has got a hell of a name ID, and he's been around for a very, very long time. And that, unfortunately, in politics, it has a substantial amount of weight. I hate that it does. We all hate that it does, but it's not changing. So the only way that you can fight past it is to continue to put the pedal to the metal and coalition build. If you do that, then you may have a chance. As I've said, politics electorally is overrated, but it is important. It is very important, especially at the local level. And while the mayor of New York City is a substantially large, the biggest mayoral position in the country, probably the world, it's still a local job. So it is important who your mayor is. I would never accuse New York City liberals or just liberals in general of being progressive, Kitty. That's not their modus operandi. Theirs is capital first and foremost, with some social progressivism mixed in because it makes them feel good. To actually ask for them to make fundamental generational changes, they're just as bad as any hardened conservative. It doesn't matter. It's just one different stripe. That's what it's about. So, as you guys know, I've considered a lot about, how much bloodshed is tolerable for even the most hardened people. And in politics, it is very hard to measure just how much intestinal fortitude anybody has when it comes to watching these children be mass murdered. I can only imagine what the doctors have felt, what the volunteers have felt, what the Palestinians have felt every day. And then you think about some of our journalistic heroes like Abby Martin and what she's been through and how hard she has fought to make sure that this story is kept front and center. And for somebody who is as stoically tough and assured as she is, even she can only stand so much when considering everything that's going on right now. For those innocent children, how much can one person take?
I'm a changed person. I will never be the same. I don't know how anyone can be. Looking at the crimes against humanity that we've all witnessed, especially against children. These helpless, helpless children slaughtered in the tens of thousands.
Humanity, as she said, humanity is dead. And that is especially true for anyone who is still playing stupid when it comes to what's going on right now. We cannot turn our heads anymore. We must be vigilant. Abby Martin is one of the most courageous and effective messengers in journalism that I've ever seen. I can go back and watch videos that she did a decade ago, and I still find them inspiring. In fact, one of the best videos she ever did was chronicling back in 2016 why you should not vote for Hillary Clinton under any circumstances. Zaina had the privilege and pleasure of speaking with Abby. We hope to do the same at the end of the summer. And to see somebody, like I said, as tough as nails as her, break down and cry shows the complete lack of humanity that has shown its ugly face on our society. There's no getting away from the complicity that our country has been involved in for over a year and a half. Now, I'm not saying that everybody is guilty. Not everybody was as out front and center on this as Jen and I were right after October 7th. In fact, one of the most viral clips we ever did, which we will play, I don't know if we're going to play it now, but we will play at some point if you guys haven't seen it, because remember, a lot of you guys are new here. But Jen issued a statement the first week after October 7th, talking about the Nakba and how if you couldn't see that eventually the dam was going to break on this apartheid state, you just weren't paying attention. She knew things were going to be bad, and they were a hell of a lot worse than I think even she could have anticipated. And I'd like to believe that the same is true here with Abby. She could not have ever anticipated that this was going to be as bad as it was. And it was that much worse.
Humanity's dead. I don't know what I'm going to tell my children. I don't know how I can explain to them that the world has allowed this to happen. And if we don't hold Israel accountable, what's next? What's next? That's the question that I want to ask. Is this really the world that we're going to live in? Where this state can commit these crimes on camera with impunity? Proudly.
It isn't so much that Israel is committing these crimes on camera. What I think it comes down to is very simple. Now, I've been involved in politics for many years. I was always interested in the presidents from the time that I was young. I majored in political science when I was in college at Rutgers. But it's not just that. It's a lot more. It's the fact that I've always felt that there was a certain level of injustice. Yair, we appreciate you being here. We hope you will eventually see the light in what your country has done, not just to the Palestinians, but to the entire world. But we appreciate you watching, even if you disagree. When I couldn't understand the intricacies of our political system, the money, the bribery, all these things, I didn't know where to direct that anger. I didn't know exactly who it was that I should have been paying attention to. And what I learned was that it took somebody like Bernie Sanders to come along and say, I have a message for the billionaire class. You can't have it all. And we are going to have a political revolution in this country. But then Bernie started unearthing a lot of the things that people didn't recognize. We had been scared and been lied to for decades, not centuries, but generations about the validity of universal single-payer healthcare. Constantly being told, we can't afford it. It doesn't work. And Bernie came along and said, single-payer, universal healthcare, that's what we're going to do. Do you guys know that we pay for Israel's healthcare? Did you know that? Israel gets universal healthcare, universal education, and we pay for it. You're telling me that we can't do that here? Of course we can. In fact, a universal healthcare system costs less than what we're paying for now. In fact, it's less by about $500 billion a year. But because the corporate infrastructure is designed to cater to profit by any means necessary. And that includes killing people in order to make a profit. Hence why Luigi Mangione became a Dark Knight symbol of our society. Bernie Sanders helped us, particularly in 2015 and 2016. He guided us on the right path to understanding how this system is as broken as it is, how it's not about directing the problem that clearly exists when we ask ourselves, why is it that we're the only developed nation on the planet that doesn't have basic needs taken care of? Education, healthcare, clean drinking water. job opportunities, learning a trade. Those things don't exist because our entire system is completely engulfed in corporate special interests. It is a form of fascism, oligarchy, whatever you want to call it, but it's real and it's here. And Bernie was able to show us a pathway forward to understanding why that is the case. But that wasn't the only thing that we learned. We learned many of the machinations as to why that is the case. We learned just how filthy, despicably corrupt the Democratic Party infrastructure is, infinitely more corrupt than the Republican Party by a wide margin. But many people didn't know these things. They didn't understand them. They couldn't see it. They didn't know that it was really there in front of them until it got exposed. How many times does the Democratic Party have to show you that they will sink this country straight into hell before they relinquish corporate special interest power over the party? Not happening. So we have to find another way. The same was true when we talked to you guys about Ukraine, that it had nothing to do with anything other than we, the United States, NATO, want control of over $7 trillion worth of natural resources in Western Ukraine. Hence why we want to get them into NATO and put our troops up on Russia's border. And Putin said no. Do we agree with what he's done to the Ukrainian people? Of course not. But do not mistake why it happened and for what reason. The same is true for what's going on in Gaza. There is $500 billion worth of natural gas under that soil, and we want it. We also want 25 miles worth of Mediterranean coastline real estate development opportunity, which is in the trillions of dollars in economic opportunity. And that's it. And if millions of people have to die, then that's the way it is, baby. Everything has a price. We kill upwards of 100,000 people a year in this country for profit that we know of. That we know of. Lord knows how many more there is. We have significant disagreements with RFK, but we 100% agree with him that our food in this country, to a man, woman, and child, overwhelmingly is poisoned. There is a reason that the same type of foods that are sold all over the world, particularly in Asia and Europe, do not have the same ingredients that we have in our food. As many as 23 substances are illegal in other parts of the world, but they're illegal here. Why? Because it gets people fat and sick and dependent on big pharma. That's how this works. It's all interconnected, which is why they fight so hard to prevent any domino from falling. So to bring it full circle, when Abby talks about how is it that we have allowed ourselves to not necessarily perpetuate the genocide that is going on, but to allow it to happen the way that it has, the reason that this is happening, pure and simple, is because it has never been thrown in people's faces before. They had never seen anything like this before. And many people are fighting back. But the infrastructure that controls the system, which is run by a very small cabal of people that are so fucking rich, you would never be able to wrap your heads around it. And I know who these people are because I'm in commercial real estate. I can tell you that I know a person who's worth $500 million, and you would never know it in a million years that they were. But these are the people with real money and real power, and they can move not just elected officials, they can move countries to do certain things economically, politically, socially. They can control all of it. In the case of Israel, it is an incredibly lucrative, financially driven, and yes, religiously driven ideology that is potentially going through its death throes. I don't know if it's there yet, but it's not going to surprise me if it gets there sooner than later. Because now it's in everybody's face. You cannot deny what's going on. And to those who are denying it, they're just lying. Let's finish out what Abby has to say.
That's not the world that I wish to grow children in and raise children in, and it terrifies me. So yes, I'm very impacted, and I question people who are not. I question people's soul if you are not impacted by what you see. How? How are you human? How are you?
If anybody ever wants to understand what motivates me, particularly when it comes to somebody like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I'm going to replay this clip. It's a quick one. It's only about 30 seconds. But this will give you an idea of why this particular person is the bane on my existence, as it should be on everybody else's, and is emblematic of what is wrong with politics today.
There's this vote that's going to happen on the Israel-Hamas resolution on the floor. Are you concerned that some Democrats may not support this?
I would hope that all members would support a resolution that condemns terrorism, the brutal attacks that were perpetrated against the Israeli people that were killed. We have 218 hostages. They took 222. Someone who votes against this, I would think, doesn't have a soul.
The only person who doesn't have a soul is Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And she is as proud a Zion-Nazi as anybody in politics. She has been attached at the hip with Netanyahu since the day she walked into that fucking seat 20 years ago. And to the people in South Florida who I know watch this show, to hell with all of you who sat on the sideline and didn't have the courage to stand up. I did. I sacrificed a lot of economic opportunity to try to help Jen beat her. And there were a lot of people who didn't stand up, who didn't have the courage to do anything, even behind the scenes. But just understand, whether it hurts you or not to hear it, you all have Palestinian blood on your hands, all of you, for just thinking that this is acceptable behavior and that it's not our problem. It is now, because let me assure you, there will be a reckoning for what has been done to the Palestinians. And it's already happening. You will not escape this. And to the Israel supporters and the Israelis in the chat, hunker down, baby. Because it's just starting. The boomerang hasn't even begun to come back in your direction. You know, the funny thing is about the Israelis, because the Israel economy is starting to collapse, they could never live in any type of a poverty-like situation. So for so many of them, they're going to try to find their ways to the United States. Well, you know what I think? I think we should do with the Zionists in the United States as they've been doing with the Palestinians. I'm not saying to slaughter, but as far as I'm concerned, we don't want them in the United States. Go somewhere else. Go find your own country. Like Canada and Mexico take you, just like you wanted Egypt and Syria and Jordan to take all the Palestinians. Well, you could go knock on Canada and Mexico's door and they could take you, because you're not wanted here in the United States. And you can shout this from now until the rooftop, but what I will remind you, Yair, as I remind everybody else, point blank, period. There were 700 Palestinians mass murdered by Israel in the year 2023 before October 7th. And that is well documented. So you can pretend all you want. You can bury your head as deep in the sand as you can possibly bury it. But you will never, ever wipe your hands of what you've done. And if there is a hereafter, you will have a reckoning in the afterlife as well, because you've all been stone silent. And I've got the receipts, because from day one, we have been on this like white on rice, never hesitating. And we will continue to talk about this until there is the liberation of the Palestinian people. ABC3, get your ass in here. Welcome back to Generational Change.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that little rant-a-roo.
I did. I mean, you're onto something, huh?
Well, as you know, I'm Irish, and so in my blood, I simply can't take this. Like, I cannot take this. I cannot. You know, there are still too many people that are silent. And it's
yeah, there's still a lot of, wait, can y'all not hear? I'm wondering if, oh yeah, I did mute my, can you hear me now, chat? Sorry about that. I'm streaming on my channel right now.
Awesome.
And I muted myself and on here, so I want to make sure. Okay, you can hear me now. All right, sorry about that. All right, ready to go. What were you saying?
The Zionist contingent is obviously very strong in South Florida and in New York. How would you describe it in Southern California?
I would say that I'm not going to lean into any particular stereotype because, as with the case of Kanye West making comments, Dave Chappelle making comments, there is this unfair stereotype that, Jews run Hollywood. And there's a lot of diversity in Southern California. It's not just Hollywood. LA has a lot of different pockets of people. And I have experienced more LA life in the parts of LA that aren't, Beverly Hills, Malibu, or Hollywood. I'm in, K-Town and Eagle Rock, and it's a completely different kind of lifestyle. It's a completely different kind of people. And there's not a lot of animosity, but we know that on some college campuses in Los Angeles, there has been a pro-Palestinian movement that was met with harsh criticism and even counter-protesters that traveled up from, say, Orange County, the more chud areas of SoCal, and they let it be known that they will be as violent as they are able to get away with when going toe-to-toe with pro-Palestinian protesters on college campuses, specifically UCLA. That was a pretty bad incident.
Well, what I would say, and I think, we've touched upon this before, and I think it's probably as relevant now as it was when we last spoke about it. But I think when you have somebody who's as big of a Zionist as Adam Schiff, and you think about the district that he represented, which obviously covered Sherman Oaks and a lot of those places on the northern side of LA, my guess is that a lot of those particular communities, and I've always maintained that this really is another reflection of the class war more than anything else, because the people who speak loudest, whether they're Jewish or not, in favor of the Zionist state, they typically tend to be very affluent people. These are not people of working class or middle class means, generally speaking. These are usually people that live extremely comfortable, affluent lives that are very pro-Israel. Tell me I'm
not
wrong.
Even Jewish necessarily.
Exactly. I think it's a class war. I think it comes back to everything that we've been talking about. That so much of the problems stems from the fact that the capitalist system is collapsing under its own weight because there needed to be a massive reset back in 2015 with Bernie Sanders. And they decided we are going to tempt fate and not have a great reset. And instead, we're going to go full blown into the future with somebody like either a Hillary Clinton or a Donald Trump, and knowing full well that we were going to end up right where we are. We just didn't realize that a genocide was going to be happening at the same time. So it's like we got all these balls in the air that we're trying to juggle. And yet at the same time, I think because it's accelerating at such a pace, that the dam is going to break and they will never put it back together. I think this country is starting to get to a point where they're ready to sever ties with Israel. I mean, are you getting that gut feeling in any way?
I don't know about that. I do know that it's not surprising to me, at least, that the people who stand staunchly in support of Israel are the same people who are part of big money interests, and they tend to side with the party that, albeit both Democrats and Republicans are in bed with the capitalist ruling class. The Republicans are a little bit less apologetic with their intent to maintain close ties to the interests of capital at the behest of capital at the expense of all other constituents. And one thing that I know more than anything else is that after 9/11, this country has been incredibly, unapologetically Islamophobic. And I'm not so sure how much of a role that has played. I would say a great deal. But in terms of and this is like almost embarrassing to admit because it kind of paints me in a bad light of where I tend to like dig for trash like a goddamn raccoon on Twitter X. And I've seen a lot of like far right influencers like neo fucking Nazis take a stance against Israel, and it's not necessarily, you know, it's like one of those things like a broken clock, like the fucking Tate dude is now being pretty staunchly pro-Palestinian, taking a stand against Israel, and I think that has been a common trend that I have noticed. But in terms of political power or institutions willing to cut ties with Israel, I have no idea where they are with that calculated decision at this point. I think they could be holding on to their ties with Israel for a pretty long time, I fear.
Yeah, and I think that that's really the bigger issue, which is what I was alluding to when I was talking about Abby Martin, is that it isn't so much where, you know, she's in tears asking, why are we letting this happen? The fact of the matter is, it's much like policy in the United States. You know, overwhelmingly, the people in the United States understand that a single-payer healthcare system is the solution. If you're going to build housing in the United States, you must build working-class housing. If you don't do these things, then you're
not just market rate housing, abundance bros. You gotta sit this one out.
Yeah. Well, therein lies the problem, because you have so many of the worst kinds of people that are, you know, just kind of at the top of the heap, and they really have this pride and ego trip where they just don't think it could ever change. And that's the danger, because we are seeing the disintegration of the system overall. And the reason I believe that is because we've gotten to the point where people just don't trust anything anymore. They don't trust the government. They don't trust the electeds. They don't even trust the people around them. Like, there is this kind of fear thy neighbor thing that's going on that is also exceptionally dangerous. And while I think that some people are naive to the realities of what's going on, even they, I think deep down, are thinking, man, this just doesn't feel right. It feels like we're sinking into some type of abyss. Maybe that is happening. Maybe it isn't. But
no, I think it absolutely is. And that's actually like these conditions, these economic, these social conditions that have led to many people feeling this angst, feeling discontent, not being able to maybe put their finger on what's going on because they lack class consciousness. These conditions are ripe for the influence of far right and fascistic tendencies that we have already seen implemented and rolled out from the Republican Party, and taking advantage of the the uncertainty, I think, is precisely what the Republicans are doing. There was this interview. I couldn't tell you even who was the person. I can't even give them the credit for the quotes, but the ruling class knows that we're on our last leg. They know that this empire is dying. It's run its course and it's starting to fold in on itself. And they are, stripping the walls for the copper wiring. It was his words. So while we are hunkering down and uncertain of our own future, it's going to lead to people panicking and then being desperate to feel any semblance of control or protection, to which Donald Trump has responded with, I'm going to get the bad guys out of the country. I'm going to live stream ICE raids and make sure that the people who want to hurt you, immigrants, people who don't look like you, they no longer pose a threat, dealing with DEI and providing that information, that propaganda, not information, it's not credible by any means, but having the influence that Donald Trump has and being able to wield into existence that propaganda, that narrative that really sticks with his sycophantic base, is why I think it feels so dangerous. because we know that lack of material conditions from, top-down decision-making and policies that give more money to the rich, it's just this big, beautiful bill, this tax break for the upper crust of society, that's going to be money funded all.
It is a big, beautiful bill. Excuse me. It's a big, beautiful bill, and you know it.
You know what I do know? Elon Musk and Donald Trump, I knew that their breakup would be messy, because the thing about Elon Musk is he's been able to fool a lot of people that he's some big genius. And Donald Trump is one of those people. And I think Donald Trump realized that Elon Musk is not the fucking brilliant motherfucker that he thought he was. And that, in part with, he being like a drug addict and just very unwell, I think led to his departure. I don't think that he was even supposed to leave until like later on in the summer. But yeah, have you seen that? Have you seen the news about the breakup between Elon? They're going at each other on like Twitter X, Truth Social.
So when I think of somebody like Elon, I think that he's definitely a mixed bag. I think that he gets a lot of heat that is completely warranted. And then I think some people just go into overkill. The reality is he just happens to be a very visible billionaire, but there are much more nefarious people that are at his level that tend to hide behind the scenes that you just don't know about in terms of their activity. Like
sure. Like Elon Musk wants the money and the power and the fame.
Yeah, he doesn't I don't think Elon wakes up every day wondering how many different ways he can play God like somebody like Bill Gates does.
Oh no, I think they do. I think so. I just think that Bill Gates was more capable of finding out how to get it done in a way that meant he would be accumulating real power, because now he's the largest landowner in the world. He owns
that's what I'm saying.
That he can grab.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Gates is infinitely more dangerous than somebody like Elon, because Gates is a genius. Like, he is that intelligent, and people like that should really scare people.
Because I think that Elon Musk is just not competent enough to be as evil genius as Bill Gates. I think if he could, he would.
I agree. And I would say the same about Zuckerberg. I would say the same about a lot of these guys. But we have created a system where you pretty much have maybe 1,000 people that you could put in a room, and they control everything. They control the world. They control finances. They control economics. They control.
Yeah, for the World Economic Forum, dude. They meet every fucking year. It's not even like they keep it a secret.
No, they don't keep it a secret, and I think that speaks, to a great deal of the problem. But that also lends into, what are some of the things that are going to end up happening that are going to push things a little too far over the edge? I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe that with what's happening right now in the Mediterranean Sea with Greta Thunberg and the Freedom Flotilla, I know we think that there's a point where Israel will not cross like a certain line, but I'm not convinced that they're not going to firebomb that boat and that they're not going to kill her. And I say this because Israel doesn't ever know when to say when. And if they're going down like a spiraling tornado, then would it really be surprising if they created an international incident and blew up that boat? Or if the boat blew up and they blamed it on Russia or something like that? I'm just saying. And I've got this clip that is from Democracy Now! And, listen, give Greta a lot of credit. She's got a lot of guts. She has to know she's putting herself in harm's way. Like, this is a very, very dangerous trip that she's on right now. And even if it is to prove a point, it's a point that needs to be made.
Tell us why you're taking this journey, extremely dangerous, and how you're planning to challenge the Israeli blockade.
We cannot afford to give up. There is simply too much at stake. And in times of injustice, as we are seeing now, the genocide and blockade happening, we have to do everything we can to demand an end to these atrocities and war crimes committed by Israel. And for me personally, I happen to have a platform for some reason, and then it is my moral obligation to use that platform. And if my presence on this boat can make a difference, if that can show in any way that the world has not forgotten about Palestine, and to try once again to attempt to break the siege and open up the humanitarian corridor and deliver the extremely needed humanitarian aid, then that is a risk I'm willing to take. And it's something that we just simply have to do. We cannot just sit around and do nothing and watch this live stream genocide unfold in front of our very eyes. So we are doing this because we are human beings who care about justice. And when our complicit governments fail to step up, it falls on us, unfortunately, to do so.
I mean, you want to talk about a perfect close? When our governments fail to do anything, we the people have to step up and do something. And that's what she's doing. Even in the face of Senator Lindsey Graham saying that, I hope she knows how to swim. Could you
that fucking Barstool guy who was just like, hope she dies.
Oh, believe me, we're not done yet. We're going to get to Dave Portnoy in a minute.
Right.
Can you imagine, because you saw what they did to Glenn Greenwald.
I did, yeah.
Could you imagine what they have on Lindsey Graham? Could you imagine what's in his closet?
Oh, imagine, things that he would not want to be revealed to the public. I mean, it's like an open secret, I believe, among members of Congress, but yeah.
We always manage to give a shout out. And Israelis wonder why people hate their guts. Like, you guys make it so easy. You're just such inhuman slime. Like, I have no other way of explaining it. So she's autistic. What the fuck does that mean? You say it like it's an insult. Let me tell you something. Greta Thunberg, she's got real guts, kid. You know what you have? You have an iron dome protecting your pussy ass. That's what you have. I'm sorry you don't, and I'm sure you don't like hearing that, and I don't like to have to say it. But here's the thing, pal. Do not pick on people who can't defend themselves, because I can defend myself, and you wouldn't talk like that to me. Give a shout out to our good friend, Medea Benjamin over at CodePink, who did not mince words when it came to Senator Lindsey Graham threatening the life of Greta Thunberg.
We just visited Lindsey Graham's office and told him how upset we were about him threatening Greta Thunberg and the Madeline ship that's trying to bring food and medicines to Gaza. They called the police. The police kicked us out of there. Now they're telling us we can't even hold up a sign. But we're here to show our support for the Madeline ship, for the Freedom Flotilla, for the people of Gaza. And we're going around to the senators to say, put out a statement saying that Israel should not attack the ship. Let the ship get to Gaza, deliver its aid. Free Gaza.
I'm here because I read a tweet that he made this week concerning a small boat as part of the Freedom Flotilla.
Now, I would ask you, Amy, what would possess somebody like Lindsey Graham to write a tweet like that? Would you think that that was all done on his own, or do you think somebody suggested that maybe he should put that out there?
I think that Lindsey Graham hates himself because he has to live every day of his life as a closeted man, and this is the way that he projects his hatred of himself onto the rest of the world. So I do think part of me believes that he does get some satisfaction from being this kind of a piece of shit. Truly. But I don't know, maybe somebody does have some dirt on him and is threatening to reveal that information to the public if he doesn't, take a firm stand using similar genocidal coded language as Israelis do openly to wish death upon this young woman who has been one of the most central figures when it comes to speaking out and acting against the powers that be that's killing the planet, or in the case of Palestine, committing a genocide. And you have to give Greta that credit. It's not just because she is autistic. She might not see the same or have the same, she might not have the same appreciation or honor or respect the hierarchy that a lot of autistics don't tend to honor or respect. But that doesn't mean that what she has done isn't, sort of just incredibly brave and incredibly powerful. She has let her voice be known for a while now. Even when she was a child, she was on the right side of history, and she continues to be on the right side of history. So
I definitely agree. And I think regardless of whether people like, I equate it this way. You don't have to like Greta Thunberg. You could say that, you didn't like her with the, environmental marches and stuff. And some people felt that there was hypocrisy related to that. But I look at it as something as simple as somebody like Jimmy Dore. Jimmy is somebody that we have very strong disagreements with. And there's a lot to his shtick that I do not agree with. But you know what? Jimmy, from day one, has been right in defense of the Palestinian people. And he uses his million-plus platform to come to their defense. The same is true of Candace Owens. And these are people that we can have very strong political, economic, and social disagreements with. But you know what? On maybe the most significant issue of our lifetime, they have been right basically from day one. And that is where you have to put differences aside and unite around a common cause if you're going to shock the world and make the substantial infrastructural change that is needed, not just for the Palestinian people, but for humanity overall, period.
Us trying to take humanitarian aid into Gaza. That's a mission that I trained for last year and was foiled by the pulling of the flags from our ships last year. I'm not on that flotilla this year because the boat is so small and there wasn't room. But he made a comment that he hopes that this 22-year-old activist, Greta Thunberg, who's just trying to break the siege of the starving people in Gaza, hoping she could swim. Now, I'm hoping he's kidding in some way, but the implication is that he expects the boat to sink. The last boat that tried to go was bombed by an Israeli drone. Does he want her to drown?
Every flotilla has been bombed, I think. Or has been... Every flotilla has been shot at or has experienced some hostility from the Israeli military. Like, no flotilla has ever safely entered, these waters outside of Gaza. Usually there's some sort of pushback, or sometimes they just shoot it and capsize it and everybody dies. So,
well, that's, like I said, what makes this particular moment so significant is if they do this and essentially Greta becomes martyred, it's going to cause an international incident. Like, that's what's going to happen. And the fact that she's prepared to lay down her life for this, I mean, I already think Israel's past the point of no return, but if they do martyr Greta Thunberg, they will have reached the point of no return. They'll never recover from it, and it will accelerate their demise as a state as quickly as possible. So I don't want that to happen to Greta, but if it does happen, we must use all of our strength to continue to break the spirit and the will of the Zionist state. That is our job. It's our job now. It'll become an even bigger job if something devastatingly bad happens to this boat.
Swimmer, if I was on that boat, my question for the senator, does he want me drowned just because I'm trying to bring humanitarian aid into Gaza?
Yes, he does.
When I begged the Senate and the Congress and the President to send the proper aid there to prevent this humanitarian consequence.
This is an unarmed humanitarian boat that's trying to get to Gaza to bring food and medicine.
I had a different position.
And
what was that in?
I hate to be a Deborah Downer. I have a different position on this. I think that Israel is willing to wager that they can straight up murder Greta, and very little will change. It's not going to change Donald Trump's position. It's not necessarily going to change to people who are currently on the fence as to whether or not they should start considering what Israel's doing in Gaza to be a genocide or not. I just think it's going to piss off the people who are already pissed the fuck off. But I hope I'm wrong.
I think you are, because I think you look at the people that have found their way into the fray that otherwise would never be involved in politics. You have somebody like Miss Rachel, who never gets involved in politics, and now for her, it's like a crusade. So I agree with you, because Israel has been able to escape it forever, but maybe this is the time where they finally went too far.
I hope so. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Imagine threatening the life of a 22-year-old. Yeah. Lindsey Graham has not wanted to see food and medicines get into Gaza. And he has been part of this cabal that wants to keep the war going and wants to starve people in Gaza.
How low can you be? How low? He needs to issue an apology for that statement.
For what purpose? What is him? First of all, even if he did issue a statement, it would be just like Joni Ernst's apology. It wouldn't mean anything. If anything, I give Joni Ernst credit for just troll apologizing, because they don't really care. I have to think enough people have reached a point where they're aware that our elected officials, especially ones in the highest offices, they're basically untouchable. There's very little, if anything, that you could do, especially somebody like Lindsey Graham in South Carolina, Joni Ernst in Iowa. They're basically untouchable. They can do whatever they want for as long as they want. And that's in many ways, the danger of where we are now. Because when things start to spiral, and you know how corporate bought and owned these representatives are, it's not, and again, they're not representatives, they're politicians. We've got to be very clear about that. There needs to be a distinction between what the real meaning of their positions really are.
They're surrogates for the capitalist ruling class. Like, they're doing their bidding. It's not even accurate to say that they are elected officials, because they only represent like a very small percentage of constituents that are not necessarily even in their district. So add insult to injury. They don't give a flying fuck about the people who voted for them or the people who they're supposed to represent, even if they didn't vote for them.
So we appreciate all of you guys being here, and it really means a lot as our channel continues to grow. Amy, I'm sure it probably surprises you even a little bit that we have been eclipsing 300 live viewers at a time. We've passed 26,000 subscribers.
I'm not surprised.
Well, thank you. I guess I had something to do with that. I appreciate your vote of confidence. To our awesome mod, Brett Boyle, thank you for gifting one Generational Change membership. For those of you who are fortunate enough to get it, much appreciated, and hope you'll stick around. Piano Man, thank you so much for the $10 super sticker. That really means a lot. And of course, to Ronell Delmont, thank you for the $10 super sticker. And you're also a YouTube member, and we really appreciate you being here. And of course, Iranian Kiddo, thank you so much for the $4.99. Yeah, Greta Thunberg has a little bit of that Joan of Arc thing going on. There's no two ways about it. Again, guys, if you are here, remember to make sure that you've hit that like button, make sure that you are subscribed, make sure that you share the stream, make sure that you click the bell. And also, if you are so inclined, go to patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. Guys, the links are in the description to Amy C3's channel. She primarily streams on Twitch, so make sure that you are subscribed there. Follow her work. She is an incredible advocate for housing in the United States. It is one of the primary issues of our time. As you know, we have a housing crisis, and so much of it stems from the fact that
You want me to tell you?
Yeah.
It's the same reason that politicians shouldn't be considered representatives, because the moneyed interests that are pretty much dictating what housing policies are even allowed. No rent control, no public housing. We could have a complete revitalization of our Section 9 or public housing model. And the reason why we ended up switching from public housing to Section 8 housing vouchers was because the real estate lobby saw the benefit of the government relying to and outsourcing housing to private profit motivated landlords and said, hey, instead, why don't you just give us a subsidy and we'll provide housing? And one of the reasons why Section 8 is failing is because landlords don't have to accept subsidized housing. So they've cut into our housing stock. We've had plenty of decisions made by Democratic representatives, especially during the Clinton administration, to undercut the amount of housing that the government is even mandated to provide. That's the Fair Cost Amendment change.
Yeah, but think about how much money. Think about how much money we ended up making as a result of undercutting those people. I did a really great job of that.
I don't think that people realize how awful Bill Clinton
was. Clinton is. Like,
hindsight's 2020, but like I mean, people would never say, "Oh, he's just as bad as Reagan."
He's worse than Reagan. He's worse than Reagan. What, are you kidding? Him and what he and Newt Gingrich did to this country, I don't think people can fully wrap their
heads around. Dude, I mean, we don't really talk about Newt and how he changed the game with how congressional politics work.
Yeah, that evil bastard. Well, he married an alien, so you know he may be an alien himself. I did say, yeah. Well, I think in a lot of ways that's probably true. You know, I do think that there is some validity to that. But as I said, domestically, Clinton was our worst. Foreign policy-wise, Bush was our worst, and we got them back to back. And that in so many ways is what has set this country on such a devastatingly bad course. And as I said, we needed that course correction in 2015, 2016. And the powers that be knew that the people wanted it. It was obvious. And they had to literally steal it from the will of the people in order to now bring us to a point where a lot of people are contemplating revolution, legitimate revolution. And so how we're going to come through it, I'm not sure. But I don't want to neglect what I mentioned that we were going to talk about. So I assume that you're familiar with Dave Portnoy and his wonderful shtick.
Everything I know about him is pretty much against my will, but yeah, I know who he is.
So Dave Portnoy is Barstool Sports. This guy has made a killing, but he also has become somewhat of a cult-like figure out there because he goes around all over this country trying all different types of pizza, which of course should be Amy's job. That's what she should be doing. But instead, this douche canoe has Amy's job, probably stole it from her. And he's become very wealthy. But when push comes to shove, I didn't even know this myself until recently. Dave Portnoy is Jewish, and he is a Zionazi of the highest order. And not only that, but he also doesn't believe in free speech. He believes in the ultimate forms of censorship, and that includes anyone speaking ill of Israel. And here's some of what he said on a podcast with, I believe, some of his bros the other day.
I think right now you probably
nothing then. Nothing. Silence everything. What do you? Every comedian, don't tell a joke about it. Because Dave, that's how the world works. I agree with you.
Go back to your question. When does freedom of speech impinge on
freedom
of religion?
Not mine. That was your question.
Answer it.
How many deaths?
Yeah.
I don't have an answer.
Like how in America, American citizens.
What's your answer to that question?
Now.
Okay, we're there.
Now.
So now what? So now what do we do?
So maybe you stop with the fucking Jew jokes and act like it's not a big deal when someone does fuck the Jews in a bar.
Or
fuck the Jews? Who cares? People say fuck the Irish. People say that the Irish are drunk. People say that the Irish are dumb. People say a lot of bad things about the Irish. So
I think the one thing that we know about people like Dave Portnoy and other prominent Zionists, they will constantly weaponize the fact that, yes, Jewish people are still to this day incredibly persecuted. They are still under attack. They still are subject to anti-Semitic violence, but no way, shape, or form should this ever justify what Israel is capable of doing to Palestinians in Gaza at the moment. And victimizing themselves or using the platform that he has found himself having for whatever reason to overstate the victimization of incredibly, privileged people, I think is kind of just par for the course. And it's the reason why you can couple this with some of the most active pro-Palestinian protesters who are part of Jewish Voice for Peace. A lot of Jewish people will say not in our name. A lot of Holocaust survivors. In fact, I would say there are more Holocaust survivors who are against what Israel is doing in Gaza than not. And so, you hate to see it because there's plenty of people like this fucker, but I'm also not really surprised at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if he's just acting like a sappy little bitch and complaining about the fact that he doesn't like anyone telling Jew jokes, but this guy's out there saying, please firebomb Greta Thunberg's boat.
Yeah.
We'll continue.
Here's the thing. I'm with you 1,000% on that. You should fucking kick those people out. Of course you should.
I'm not talking about kicking them out. I'm talking about.
You want to go to jail? Like, what do you want? Like,
those guys are defending this guy Mick for what he said right after that happened. He's not anti-Semitic.
I'm not defending him. No,
if your brain goes in,
I'm
you are
not defending him, Dave. What I'm saying is you should have him on here or somebody else like that and fucking fight with them because then you have a conversation.
That's what this idiot wants.
Dave, these guys that wrote the thing at the bar, fuck the Jews, right?
Yes.
You're going to fucking fly them to Auschwitz. Somebody tweets at you something. You want to fucking... He's not,
Kirk,
you can't come out
it was a bar I owned. It was a bar I owned.
They should have been kicked out.
Kick him out then. If you're the owner of the bar, kick him the fuck out of the bar. What the fuck?
But that's not enough.
No, I mean, free speech absolute has always blown my mind because in his mind, it's like, it's my free speech to say, I hope Greta dies. But like, you can't say this, apparently. Double standards.
And he's like such a pussy about this. Like he really comes off as just a total weakling. Like he can't take anything. And again, people don't realize how filthy rich Portnoy is. Like he is filthy rich. And again, it's just another stereotype. Another fucking stereotype. The people with all the money are the ones who claim that they're the ones being persecuted. I don't like what those kids are saying on campus. I don't feel safe. I feel like I'm in trouble. What about the kids that are having their heads blown off every day? Well, we have to defend ourselves. And they deserve it. They're going to grow up to be terrorists. That's how guys like this think. And they wonder why anti-Semitism is growing leaps and bounds in this country. And it's not even anti-Semitism because people get, Jen points this out all the time. It's like they can't identify what a Semite actually is. You want to say it's Jew hate, whatever. But in reality, it's just Zionist hate. And it's justified.
Not just kick out Kirk. Are you ignoring what's going on in the world?
No,
right
I'm
now?
not. What do you want to do with those guys? What do you want to do? What do you want to do with those guys at the bar? Put them in jail for 50 years? Fine. I don't care.
I didn't
they're
say that.
assholes.
You're quite literally changing everything you say, Kirk. If you just want me to kick him out, not mention it, not care that this kid is anti-Semitic, shut up. If you just want me to ignore it,
don't tell me to shut up.
Shut the fuck up, you bald fuck.
Okay, go ahead.
How's that?
Oh, it's kill. I'll never recover from that, Dave. Go ahead, continue. I'll never recover.
Oh, you're the one who big boss man, don't tell. I'll tell you, you work for me.
Okay, go ahead, continue.
You little bitch, you work for me.
Sure, you bet. For now,
oh, you
continue.
Don't? For now, quit. I don't care.
Is this show or not a show? Like, is this a show or not a show? Like, we can't have a conversation?
You're an idiot.
Okay, continue.
You're literally saying people should be allowed to make Jew jokes, say whatever they want right fucking now. That's
yes, I think people should be allowed to make jokes.
So how many motherfucking Jews have to be killed before you stop?
Is this guy out of his mind? Is he out of his fucking mind? Like he's got to be.
No, I think that there's a little bit of the lack of self-awareness of Zionists who are just too busy sticking to a script to ask themselves how hypocritical they're coming across. There's also, I'm catching a little whiff of like the white men self-victimization that now more than ever it's so hard to be a white man because, you know, DEI and, you know, like the manosphere talking points. Like, I feel there's a little bit of that going on too. Like, I bet you this guy thinks that like the world's out to get him because he's a white man and he's a Jewish person. So, you know, it's got to be tough for him in his little mind. He's got to be, you know, really dealing with it, really going through it.
Yeah, he could cry himself to sleep in those tens of millions of dollars he's got. Yeah, tough life.
Yeah.
But everybody, I don't think.
What else? Where else is that happening with the religion or people?
I don't think those
the Palestinians. Just a thought.
Psychopaths. I'm with
I
you.
don't think
They're
that they're
scumbags. They're the
humans.
worst
That's the
people.
problem. Like they're so used to not even thinking of Palestinians as humans that they like it doesn't even register to them.
Well, I've often said, and I've been very clear about this, and I come from a very libertarian but also populist left mindset. I think the calls that everybody's a racist and a sexist and a bigot is always overrated. But when it comes to not just the Palestinians, but just anti-Muslim bigotry in this country, the racism is as thick and obvious as anything you will ever see.
Right.
The dehumanization of that particular person in our country, oh, they wear it on their sleeve and they're proud of it. They don't hide it. It's very clear.
People on the earth should that.
You don't think it's all related?
But Dave, you're telling a comedian not to make a joke?
It's not a comedian.
I'm with you. But you said stop all jokes.
Jew jokes of that nature now.
We'll ban Jew jokes of that nature. We'll get the Constitution. We'll get Congress and stop Jew jokes of that nature.
I'll go back to this.
Yeah.
When does freedom of speech impinge on freedom of religion?
And what?
Is this guy? This guy doesn't even know what the Constitution means.
No,
when does freedom of speech impede on freedom of religion? That could be one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my life. Freedom of speech means the right to practice whatever religion you want. There is no the freedom of religion from verbal persecution. It's all the same.
I think that he's conflating fighting words where there is, you can't, you know, like you can't, apparently to this guy, you can't yell fire in a crowded room and you can't yell fuck the Jews in that crowded room either. You know what I mean? Which is where, you know, this stems from, I think, Zionists having too much power to wield and getting their way at any particular moment. I'd say this is just the privileges of Zionism in this country. It has less to do with Judaism and far more to do with Zionism.
Colin, can you grab? I didn't even think to bring this up, but I'm gonna piggyback off of this clip after we're done. Can you grab that clip of Max Blumenthal at that AI event with that Zionist lady who came up to him and started crying? If you could grab that, I'd really appreciate it.
I think freedom of speech should. I think freedom of speech is the most important thing in this country.
Okay, so people can go kill the Jews, and there's no responsibility if someone goes and kills Jews.
No, that's a crime if you kill somebody.
No, but not saying, hey, go kill Jews.
That's different. No. What do you mean?
You can say somebody should go kill Jews. You don't do it, but someone hears you and goes do it. You're fine with that?
Fine if somebody says go kill Jews?
Yes.
No, that's different than telling. I thought we were talking about telling a joke. I thought we were talking about comedians.
They are all using semantics for anti-Semitism right now. And I can tell the difference because for 20 years of doing it, I've never mentioned it, Kirk.
No, and I said to you when this thing happened a couple
how
weeks ago,
can you not realize we're in a different time right now?
I completely realize.
We are. We're in a different time because of fuckheads like you who think it's okay to mass murder Palestinians. It's all you, pal. There's like this lack of looking into a mirror. And I like what Manwood says. They're being anti-semantic. I think
it's
he's just
projection because they you know, it's because every single Israeli official who has said openly live on television in front of, members of the Knesset, we're the children of light, they're the children of dark. Remember the Amalek. We're going to turn Gaza into rubble, a parking lot. They constantly use phrases to say whatever they want. They always leave enough room, like the Amalek thing, to be able to scale it back when necessary. But it's really because this is the game that Zionists play to try to see how far they can go with their speech. They stretch their rights to free speech at every turn to actually advocate for, say, the ethnic cleansing, the genocide of an entire people right now. So,
well, we saw it in the chat. I mean, Yair, obviously, it's an Israeli name, and let's just assume that he really is from Israel, and he's in here trying to, test the water, see how far he can poke people. And then it becomes this, oh, you all hate Jews. And this is the whole thing. And people are looking at this like it's some type of a stand-up routine. And I would implore people to understand that, no, this is really how they think. This is how they act. And the more they lose control, the more they're going to spiral out of control. And I bring this up because, Amy, have you seen this clip of Max Blumenthal at this AI event with this Zionist woman that came up to him?
Doesn't sound familiar.
Oh my God. This is even worse.
Mr. Yadlin, can I ask a question? Yes. I'm Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone. You were the subject of a New York Review of Books article about how you and Asa Kasher helped loosen the principles of distinction on killing civilians. And
immediately he's like, oh, I can't talk to this guy. I got to get out of here as fast as humanly possible because I have been confronted with the truth and I can't handle the truth.
I wanted to ask you, how you see your role in the current genocide where thousands of children are being killed. Did you help inspire the genocide?
What's a genocide? What's the definition of a genocide?
Look at this girl just getting up in his face. What's a genocide? You want to tell me what a genocide is? Okay.
Deliberate attempt to exterminate a people. What Israel's doing.
I'd like to know. No, I just want to know the definition.
It's also a Holocaust.
I'm a Holocaust?
A Holocaust.
My grandparents are Holocaust survivors.
And you're supporting the new Holocaust.
Use that word.
You're supporting the new Holocaust. Hey, get her away from me. I just asked the speaker a question.
I'm having a conversation.
Get this Holocaust supporter away from me.
I'm a Holocaust survivor.
And supporter.
Could you imagine somebody calling themselves a Holocaust survivor because their grandparents survived the Holocaust?
I mean, in her defense, she did realize that she wasn't going to be able to. I think that she realized the company she was in and immediately tried to backpedal and said, the descendants of a Holocaust. And if, something that if somebody is in this position is out in the wild, it might be, worth it to go ahead and rattle off the what is it, like the 5, is it like there's like 5 metrics to a genocide. You don't even have to meet all of them in order for the International Criminal Court to preside over war crime tribunals in The Hague, right? It's just Israel hasn't shown up in court. Israel has been summoned to court multiple times, and they just don't go. So it's really hard to say, hey, you're guilty of genocide, Israel, because Israel just keeps on missing their court date. They just don't show up to the proceedings. That's it. That's the only reason why. Not to say that like the International Criminal Court or, the International Court of Justice is going to be the end all be all, because it's not. We have seen what the United States has been able to do with their power that they have in the UN, commissions using their power in the Security Council or whatever to veto other calls to, demand a ceasefire.
But Amy, can't you have some sympathy for this clearly native to the Middle East girl Don't you just have just a little sympathy?
So I'm told
So
that I should. Or I should respect the fact that, like, 2,000 years ago, 2,000 plus years ago, she's also the descendant of, like, people who, like, apparently were, like, kicking it with Moses, and then, like, they were here at this time, and, they have a right to return, and, like, God said that they could, and God gave it to them, gave them the land that was occupied by the native inhabitants. I've heard it all, actually. I have a lot of people come into my chat and tell me all this stuff.
Well, what I love is the more they talk, the more that they actually end up converting people to atheism. That's what ends up happening.
You're continuing the Holocaust. You're continuing the Holocaust. Tens of thousands of slaughtered children. Yeah, it's ethnic cleansing. It's what's happening in Gaza. Let's go. I have my tripod. Can I get my tripod? I have no interest in engaging with her.
Come on. You were doing good.
Okay.
We talked to you earlier about this.
She came up to me. I asked her a question.
We talked about this earlier.
To shake his hand.
Yeah, and you started.
Him.
Let's go.
No, I wasn't.
Could you have more crocodile tears? Could you cry over nothing? It's a cult. That's
not command, it seems.
Well, Jen has taught me the wonderful language of crazy eyes. Gretchen Whitmer has those eyes.
Does she? A big Gretch? I guess I never noticed.
Well, Jen's got the radar down pretty pat. She's like, yeah, Gretchen's got the crazy eyes. And this girl clearly has the crazy eyes. And I feel bad for any guy that may have pissed her off at one time during her life, because Lord knows the lengths that she may have gone to act retribution against that person. Just saying.
And I asked him a question. I asked, okay, can I get my tripod?
He's going to get it. No more questions.
Why are you crying? Why are you supporting a Holocaust?
Let's go.
And you're supporting a Holocaust.
Come on, let's go. He'll meet.
You're supporting the mass slaughter of children.
Let's go.
You're a settler.
We'll meet him outside.
Let's go. Well, he's going to bring it to me outside. He's coming right now. So the woman came up to me after I asked the speaker a question.
It's okay. Remember, we talked about this earlier.
Okay.
We talked about this earlier.
You see, Mr. Portnoy, that's what free speech looks like. It doesn't matter if you agree or not. Max has the right to be at that event. Max has the right to piss off a Zion Nazi who can't see straight when it comes to the realities of her ideology. It has been.
It was a simple question.
Yeah. Well, it's been embedded in their brains that they are forever victims. And listen, as they say, don't hate the player, hate the game. They have played the game as effectively as anybody could possibly hope to play it within this broken capitalist system. They have used that victimhood to become super rich beyond anyone's wildest dreams. There are advantages that people who are Jewish in this society would make your fucking head spin, including no interest loans on real estate investments. Again, a world that I'm aware of that not everybody is. I won't do business.
Yeah, I'm not familiar. I'm not gonna poke that one.
No, well, I will. I don't care. On top of that, I will not do business with Israelis. I've made a point to just avoid the conversation altogether. I don't want to know where you stand, because I know where your country stands, where your government stands, and what your actions are. And if I were to do business with anybody who supports the state of Israel, then if I am breaking bread with you on a multi-million-dollar real estate deal, I am aiding and abetting a genocide. I am participating in what's going on. Now, maybe there are people out there that can just accept that, and that's okay with them, that they could just look the other way. Not my problem. I'm not the one pulling the trigger, so I don't have to think about it. Well, that's not how it works. The only thing that actually impacts the capitalist system that we're living under today is if it affects them in their wallet. That is the only way anything changes. If you hit them in their wallet, then they'll react. Why do you think they fight so hard against BDS? That's real change. And of course, they've nonstop said BDS is anti-Semitism. Amy, do you know how long I've had to listen to Wasserman Schultz spew her bullshit in South Florida about how BDS is anti-Semitism? And that she has stood on that pedestal forever?
I mean, for as long as she's been in Congress, I'd say.
Yeah.
She's been in Congress since like, what, 2000?
2004. She's in her 11th congressional term. Could you imagine 22 years on Capitol Hill? I mean, you have to think that if you're really doing the job like Thomas Massie or Ilhan Omar, that it eventually gets to you in terms of the amount, if you actually care. I mean, we all know that a substantial amount of them don't actually give a shit. They don't do the job. They have all their assistants, of which they have 8. How many of you guys know that? Every congressional representative has not 1 assistant, 8 assistants.
Like staffers?
Say that again.
8 staffers?
8 staffers. To do your bidding. Whatever you want. Ain't that nice?
Yeah.
I knew a congressman who specifically had a staffer that just did their dry cleaning for them. That was their job. Take care of my dry cleaning. I need my suits clean. That was the job. So it is. Yeah.
Interesting. Somebody called in a favor for that.
Well, think about it.
Individual.
Well, think about it. If we had a podcast, and we are extremely grateful to get to 300 live viewers, 325 live viewers, and we're growing. But if we had a podcast that had 30,000 live viewers, then we would be making an impact. We live in a country where most people just don't care about politics. They just don't. They avoid it like the plague. And part of the reason they avoid it like the plague is that most of the politics that people focus on is the gossip shit, is the stuff that has no relevance, things that aren't actually going to materially change people's lives. And as
you're so close to getting it.
I think so.
Keep pontificating on that one, Pete.
I'm trying.
People want to be reminded of how bad their lives are, and they've just all but accepted that there's no political change coming their way, for whatever reason. For those who are able to look past the politics, if their lives are not inherently political, so this is very much so white privilege. Like, I know we're bringing back white privilege for a second just to like make a point, but if you're able
I'll give you a minute to make that point.
You'll give me a minute to make the point?
I said I'll give you a minute to make your white supremacist point. Let's hear it. I'm just breaking your chops.
Well, I mean, I think that white supremacy is just kind of like embedded in every single facet of our institutions, that people don't even realize just how much they are benefiting from systems of white supremacy. Like people who grew up in the suburbs, who went to a good school, who were able to go to college and move back into the suburbs, they're benefiting from racism and white supremacy. Whether they realize it or not, they're benefiting from the legacy of redlining and historical racist housing policies.
Sure.
The color line still very much exists, and people just don't want to say, no, I got here from my own hard work. Like, yeah, you might have worked hard because capitalism is a competitive system that requires blood, sweat, and tears. So you might have had to sweat a little bit to get where you are, but you didn't have to work nearly as hard as those who are born literally in the trenches. And so if you are able to bitch about how, yeah, maybe you're paying 50% of your rent right now, that fucking sucks, dude. I feel sorry for you. And your complaints are valid. But if you are still able to turn the news off and just hunker down and be a little miserable and make some changes, sacrifices in your own budget, then you are still in a better position than those who have to constantly be made aware of what is happening because their lives are inherently political. If they are not white, if they're not men, so even the white girlies, you still got to keep an eye out. You got to look behind your back every now and again. You do not have the luxury of just turning off the news, And so I do always try to be cognizant of that fact because it's not fair.
As a white man who has had multiple careers and also has lived in real poverty. I mean, I lived in a room with a mattress on the floor and a folding chair to put my computer to do work. And this is when I lived in the Bronx, and I lived there for 2 years. I do believe that there's a huge difference between being born into abject poverty than to slipping into it, much like being born into Zionism and just believing in the forever victimhood of Zionism. But I also believe that the system is designed in a way where the elements of racism rises to the surface, and you're convinced that that's the reason why things are happening the way that they're happening. But the truth is, we live in a system that doesn't want the average person to know what it takes to actually succeed, especially in this broken system. We have changed so many things dramatically for the worse. Vocational schools, job training, arithmetic, homework, those things don't exist anymore. And if they do, they typically exist at private institutions or charter schools that normally are private anyway. And for what purpose? Because the class war is real. That, in many ways, is the foundation of Trump's big, beautiful bill. Everything is about continuing to create more of an austerity-like system where people will never fight back and are going to accept the small crumbs in life that they are given, which is why it is so much easier to just pick on the immigrants, for example. It's not about actually solving the problem. If the goal was to close the border, but at the same time, deal with the real problem and why we have a border crisis. Why are so many people coming to this country? Because people in levels of desperation will work for pennies on the dollar because that's all that's there for them. And the multinational corporations, that's what they want. They would have slavery if they could get away with it. And if you can't have slavery, what's the next best thing? Pay poverty wages. Because in the end, it's all about profit. This is a clip that was taken either yesterday or the day before from a construction worker who was a Trump supporter regarding the immigration crisis and the economic crisis, the housing crisis. It's all interrelated.
I know I'm going to get a lot of hate over this, and I really don't give a fuck. But the point is, I've been doing construction work pretty much my entire adult life, over 20 years, 21, 22 years now. Right now on this job I'm on, right now, there are about 5 of us white guys out here. There's probably 2 or 3 black guys, and the rest are Latinos. And I say the rest being 100 to 125 guys. Now I've been on this job for 6 months, and that's been about the average. I wished all these guys would get their citizenship and do things legal, but the point is that they haven't. But if you send all these guys back across the border, everybody says, oh, they're going to raise the wages and all the white guys are going to get these jobs. Bullshit. Like, I don't know what fucking sandcastle you got your head shoved in or whose ass you got your head shoved in, but no, they're not. I've watched the Americans completely quit working. People my age and younger don't work. They don't, and especially ain't going to do a physical job. So all you people said, oh, they're going to increase the wage, and all these thousands and thousands of white guys are going to get these jobs. Like, have you done lost your fucking mind? I mean, come on. What's going to happen is people like me are going to be sitting at the house because there ain't even enough people to put a crew together to be able to fucking work. Fuck, man, this country and government, everybody just went to fucking shit, man. Damn, y'all keep working, baby.
I mean, I think that sums it up pretty well. And then you think about the primary issue that you've been fighting on, which is housing, and how very little of that changes. And I mean, I see it all the time. I mean, I'm dealing with a project right now that involves undoing Section 8 housing and bringing it to market rent housing because this Section 8 property was placed in a neighborhood surrounded by single family homes in a nice middle class area. But I see what these communities turn into. And when we were going through about a dozen apartments on this property, I can't imagine getting to a point where people could just live like animals, because that's what it was. It was the most disgusting, putrid form of living that would make anybody sick. But I will tell you, this system breaks people. And I think people get to a point where they just don't care. They give up. They don't know. They don't want to try. And in many ways, I think it stems from the fact, and relates to the housing crisis. So many people want to be able to live, but how can they when their economic opportunities are far and few between, and the ones that are there are ones that will not pay them enough to live close enough to where they're working? It's that trap that so many people are stuck in. You're in the heart of it. You're in Los Angeles. And there are people that are, I don't know how bad it is compared to yesteryear, because I think that the industry has changed in a lot of ways. But when you think about how desperate some people are to be in film and TV, and the fact that they are willing to pay an arm and a leg to live in a 400 square foot apartment in West Hollywood or Van Nuys or Whittier or Reseda, it doesn't matter. They're willing to do it. And the corporate landlords are all the more willing and able to make them pay that amount. This level of desperation is beyond sustainable. It's been that way for a long time. And one of the worst parts about California in particular is the fact that the ability to travel is impossible. There is no mass transit in California. Everything is by car. I was just there, as you know, traveling from Los Angeles to San Diego. And this is on the weekend, not even on a weekday. This is on a weekend when people are not working.
Oh, it's busy on the weekend for sure.
You want to put a bullet in your head. You're like, how can the traffic be this bad? And then you realize that it's kind of designed to be bad. It's designed to make you nuts. People that have the ways and the means that control everything, I think they enjoy watching people suffer. I think there is some type of a sadomasochistic enjoyment that they take watching the plebs crawl over broken glass to survive. And all the while, they're enjoying their time at the top. I think there's something to that. Am I wrong? Is that in part why the housing crisis?
I think you're just kind of talking about Elon Musk comes to mind, because he was able to really halt a plan to build mass transportation that would be offering connectivity from multiple cities in Southern California, because he wanted to build a Hyperloop. He literally was able to halt plans altogether to throw his bid in to replace public mass transportation with, and they are building, or they were building, I don't know, the infrastructure bill money that was going toward building like a rapid high-speed train between LA and Vegas. That's in the works, but I'm not even sure if that's even feasible at this point, or if there is some sort of temporary stall that will make it, impossible to actually get the job done because of tariffs and what have you.
All I know is that it's very difficult to come up for air, and everybody's...
Yeah, we're all drowning.
Yeah. Oh, let me tell you, no matter how successful I may become in what I'm doing, I will never get out of the austerity mindset. It's too deeply buried in my psyche. I think about every meal that I eat and that I enjoy it, because I don't know where the next one might be. Anytime I can have really good
Damn,
pizza.
those 2 years in Bronx really did something to you, Pete.
Oh, you kidding? Let me tell you, when I was desperate, and I mean really desperate, my meal for dinner, especially when I was living in the Bronx, usually involved, as much as I hate to say this is going back a number of years, but I had like $2 or $3 to spend. And I would get a double hamburger and a McChicken sandwich from the dollar menu at McDonald's. And I would stack them together. And I would have a big sandwich. And I would eat that shit at least a handful of times a week. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And yet there are people who get to a level of success where they think, oh, well, that's their problem. I had to go through it. You have to go through it too. When you think about the selfish bastards in this country who think, I paid into Medicare and now I'm going to get mine, knowing that they don't know jack shit about how Medicare actually works. This whole idea that we pay into it and then it comes back to us. No, the government provides it and then we get taxed. That's how it works. Learn modern monetary theory because that's actually what it is. You don't have to agree with all the plans of how we make it work, but the facts are the facts. And so with the little money I had, I would eat the type of food that I am grateful enough today that I don't have to eat anymore. But there's a lot of people who don't have any other choice.
Well, I saw this today that I guess when you order McDonald's from like a food app, the cost of one hash brown is $4.19. So, you know, people now don't even have the money to buy a McChicken double sandwich because it's not an affordable option anymore. I mean, I don't know how people are making it. I more power to those individuals who are working multiple jobs, who are probably doing the DoorDash to deliver the $4.19 hash browns to people. I have so much respect for your common worker who's just doing everything that they can to survive. And I try to be really mindful of how the amount of time that must go toward just exhausting yourself to work multiple jobs to keep a roof over your head. I mean, it's not lost on me that many people maybe would be part of something that required boots on the ground, coalition building, you know, getting out on the street if, you know, their livelihood didn't depend on it from having to work that second or third job. You know what I mean? And I know that there's talks of a general strike and who knows if that'll happen, but, you know, it's just people are just right now forced to work themselves into the ground, that even when the Republicans come in and they just, you know, chip away at you a little more with this big, beautiful bill that's, you know, we've seen the numbers. When the neoliberals are spinning the numbers and saying, hey, obviously this is going to disproportionately harm the poorest people, they're going to be the ones who are paying more at the end of the day. Look at all of the tax benefits and the incentives for people making $450,000 or more a year. Look what they're getting back. I mean, it's just so blatantly obvious what is happening. And we don't have the means to fight back because we're too busy just trying to, you know, keep ourselves from experiencing homelessness or going bankrupt. The odds are really stacked against us. And I wish I had better news to report on from my perspective, but it just seems like we're at the breaking point, and I don't know how bad it has to get for things to start to, you know, change.
Well, I think we're there. I think we are there. I think we've gotten to the point where the trust in the system is dead.
Yeah.
We've reached that point. So now the question becomes, what do we do to move ahead? That, I think, is going to be the next step. But the primary driver right now, before it's all said and done, is we have to save these Palestinian kids. And that is our job, even though our lives are in a treacherous way in many ways as well. But collectively, it is a reflection of where humanity is going, and we have to make a stand. And we are making a stand. We're all doing our part. And even though it feels hopeless in many ways, it's happening. Change is happening. It's not happening the way we want it to. And the violence is going to get worse. But the violence gets worse because they're desperate, because they know that the way of doing business is not working anymore. And once you lose it forever. And so let's continue to put that pressure on. And if we do that, then more and more of that change that we seek, fair wage housing, single payer health care, universal education, clean drinking water, ending these endless wars. That's our job. I always love talking to you. You're a wealth of knowledge and a good friend, and I appreciate you. And I hope we will be able to get together one day and grab that fancy pizza. I will definitely let you know the next time I can make it to SoCal, even though it was really a trip to San Diego. Nevertheless, guys, the links are in the description. Please make sure that you subscribe to Amy's channel. She does a lot of great work, has a lot of great streams pertaining to all of the housing problems. Obviously, Southern California is a big focus, but it's a big problem everywhere. And this is one of many of those problems. Travers, how do you know I don't already have her number, smartass? Always with the quips. Always with the quips. But yes, thank you, Brett. So make sure you go to the links in the description. Amy, I appreciate you, as I'm sure our audience does. And any final thoughts before you go?
I wish that I had the optimism that you have, because I'm feeling a certain type of way. Maybe it's just because I came straight from work. But, you know, I try to do what I can, and it can be a little heavy with the doom and gloom. But I think that, you know, you're setting a really good example with how to look forward to the future and using the righteous indignation that people are feeling right now from watching a genocide take place in genocide, to use that as a motivator to continue on the good fight here as well. So thank you for having me, and look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Amen, sister. Have a great evening. We'll talk soon.
Thanks so much. All right. Sounds good. Have a good one.
Bye. Definitely one of my favorites. Amy's good people. She's been on a handful of times. And of course, guys, as Zaina says, make sure you hit that like button. Zaina will be joining me as our co-host on Monday, June 9th. So we hope you guys will tune in. We are going to have a huge segment talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who has decided to endorse Zoran Mamdani for mayor of New York City. But there are some caveats involved in that conversation, including Alex's relentless politicking in support of the state of Israel. And I almost wonder, what is the point of having her endorsement if she is essentially saying the same language as Andrew Cuomo? I'm here to support the state of Israel. In reality, politics is a dirty business. Why people want to be involved in it, I don't know, but we are here. And we have a lot, we have a cross to bear, so to speak. But for those of you that are here tonight, we cannot thank you enough. Big shout out again to our super chatters. Iranian Kiddo 499. I did not outsource those 700,000 US jobs abroad. Yes, you did, Mr. Clinton. And you do it again because you're a rich man today. Remember, it's all about money and power, baby. Our mod Brett Boyle with the 5 Canadian A once again. Zionists need and manufacture anti-Semitism. It's used to justify their existence. And Greater Israel Project, expansionist colonial project. Well, it is our job to make sure that that does not continue. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of getting it to end. Amara with Harmony, thank you so much for the $5. Can you speak to a Hebrew free loan program in the U.S. banking system? That is too big of a topic to get into this evening, but I will be happy to get into it very, very soon. If you guys are not familiar with Matt Kim and Peter Saddington, they did a segment talking about this particular issue. And I believe Matt Kim worked in banking for a long time and spoke at great length about this. He didn't name names, but he did mention the specific caveats to the issue regarding being Jewish and being able to get these particular loans. Christopher Beck, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Christopher Beck, excuse me. I thought it said Beck for some reason. But thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. And of course, Django Thunders thank you so much for the $5. Are you familiar with Plato's allegory of the cave? No, I am not, but if you are familiar with it and would like to share it, then by all means, please do. I'm certainly open to hearing any and all ideas that either Plato or Aristotle had to share with us. I don't know all their anecdotes or advice, but I think a lot of them have a lot of relevance. I will look it up, Z. I will look it up. The allegory. I am going to do that. But for those of you that are still here, and we've had a great crowd tonight, I am going to make a show suggestion. Check out our friend Savvy Sabs. She currently has our friend Steve Grumbine on this evening. So the two of them are collaborating on a conversation about MMT. I think that that conversation is very important and necessary. So with that said, we are extremely grateful that you guys have stuck with us this evening. We have grown over the course of the live stream. Guys, if you haven't checked out our latest clips, our latest one dropped earlier with Miss Rachel calling out Israel's actions and the silence that has surrounded it. Please check out our clips. Please smash the like button and leave a comment on those clips. And of course, if you are here now, please make sure that you have hit that like button. Please make sure that you are subscribed. Please make sure that you share the stream. Please make sure to leave a comment as soon as our live stream concludes. We are very grateful and we are very fortunate that you are all here, that you have all made this incredible impact on our growth. Let me tell you, it's actually 26,200 and climbing right now. In fact, I can tell you guys that at this moment, our current subscriber count sits at 26,248. So we are growing at a very, very solid pace. And if we can stick to it, we might live long enough that Jen gets her plaque. I want Jen to get that plaque one day. Win the award. It's going to take some time, but like I said, Chris Garrett, your support is definitely worth 2 subscriptions. So we are very appreciative of that. And for all of you guys that are here, you know we love you. You know we appreciate you. And we are very grateful that you're here, Piano Man, as are a lot of others. But the thing about this channel is that we know who the OGs are. We know Brett Boyle. We know Travers. We know Harachnu. We know Chris Garrett. We know Kat Negrita. We know Sonny FX. We know Ghislaine Conspiracy Theory. We know Wanker Tanker. We know Zaina. You know, you guys were here when we had 30 or 40 people in the live stream. To think that we've 10x'd it is very gratifying, but we're only getting started. So with that said, smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. We appreciate you all. We'll see you Monday.